Good morning,
Good morning.
and welcome to the Wednesday, June 4th, 2025 informal board meeting of the Board of Public Education. This is an informational meeting only. We do not take any votes. We're very glad you're here today, and those of you that are watching online, welcome. We will start with our budget process update.
And before we jump in, I'd just like to say that our process continues. It has indeed been a process, a little bit more complicated this year based on some local changes, local and state changes, which has delayed information getting for the district. But before I hand it off to Paige Cooley to walk you through how we are anticipating how we will adjust to some of these changes, I just want to, for the purposes of the public, state that a well-crafted budget is not just our financial plan. It is a reflection of our priorities. It's a roadmap for how we will get to impact next year, and it's a commitment to our public that we will spend every dollar with purpose. And so with that said, I will turn it over to Ms. Cooley.
Thank you, Dr. Watts, and good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
On this first slide, I have just updated our general fund forecasted revenues. This number has changed since our last budget process update, and it was due to, like Dr. Watts said, local. We have not received our tax digest yet, and from what I've heard, it's due to the House Bill 581 delaying it. Even though we opted out, some did not, like Chatham County. So they have been later than they're typical in giving us this information. So as of right now, we have not received any data from them, anything in writing. Now, the reason that we did, as you remember, the amount on the local was a higher amount because we had projected growth in Chatham County to be 10%. And they have told us on an email, not officially, that our growth was 7.05%, which made quite a bit of difference in the projection that we had on the last budget update. So we are now looking at receiving, and this is not an exact number yet because I still don't have the numbers from the assessor's office. But I did plug in the amount to get to a 7.05 growth. Now, there's several factors. It depends where it's placed. It could be in property. It could be in mobile homes. It could be in different things that are on there. But when I put it in there to at least get back to that, I came up with the 29. I did make it so the growth amount was 7.05. I don't know if it'll all be in personal property or will be scattered in other areas, so that number could change. The state number has remained the same, but we still don't have the final state number either. They did give us a projection, and it's usually fairly good, but it can be off like 20,000. It can be off 200. But they also have not provided us with numbers yet either. So I'm still going on their projection that they provided to us. So that has still remained the same. And we do not know about the federal, so I have left it at, this is just the general fund federal, which is only at 1.3 million. I've just left it the same because that's very uncertain also. So as you can see, really all of our revenues are uncertain at this time. But with this new information from the assessor's office, they did tell us, they did in an email to Mr. Jackson tell us that the rollback for the school M&O is going to be 16.826. We do not have that in writing, which means that we have, if we leave it at the 17.48 mils, we'll be at a reassessed value add of 0.655 mils. But anyway, the slide here shows you that we are projecting revenue increase of 38 million. On this slide, we are showing the general fund forecasted expenditures, and we have gone in there and done a little bit of some changes on here. In that, and I'll kind of go over that in some later things, we wanted to go in and make some adjustments due to the fact that we're not getting as much money from local as we had projected. The state mandates kind of remain the same. The charter schools, we projected them a little less than we thought just based on what they are this year. Other operating and program improvements, and our fund balance is now, use of fund balance, we're projecting at $1.9 million. This is a more in-depth forecast of our expenditures, and I would like to point out that the two areas that have changed, we did change the charter school allocation estimate to $1.741 million. We had it higher before, but based on our most current numbers, we have readjusted that. We also changed our T5 Step 10 vacancy factor to a T14 Step 15, and that was based on, there's a slide on this later on that kind of goes over it, but that was based on HR, Human Resources, looking over the average person that we are hiring and finding that the amount we were using was a little bit higher than what is actual, because our typical is a T4 Step 15. So that saved us $1.5 million. We have also looked at utilities, and we have been increasing utilities a little bit each year because when I had talked to Georgia Power in the past, they'd said, oh, allow for like a 3% increase. Well, we've had a little bit overage on that. Last year, we had $2 million left at the end of the year. This year, it looks like we're still going to have some money left, also a couple of million. So next year, we have adjusted our utilities to $9.2 million. They were at 11.2 because we had left them the same for next year, not going up. But we think we can decrease those because utilities, they also, I noticed in the paper that, or news flash, that they were going to like freeze rates for a few years. So we're hoping that if that's the case, we should have enough because I think it looks like just projecting this year, we may come in at about $9 million for utilities, and we have $9.2 million figured in for next year. So I think we'll be all right on the utilities to go down $2 million or so that is one of the other changes. Now, with the revenue changes and that sort of thing, we are now at a use of fund balance of $1.9 million. This slide just shows some of our budget reductions that we have done from our district expenditures. We have reduced our central office by $12.3 million, and that is not laying off any people. But just in areas or maybe getting rid of some vacant positions. Vacant teacher salary adjustment has changed, which I just talked about. We went from a T5 Step 10 for our vacancy factor for a teacher to a T4 Step 15. And then the utilities, you can see in there is the negative $2 million. And then our vacancy factor, we had already talked about this. We had already known that we increased our vacancy factor by $10 million due to the fact that we have so many vacancies at this time. And then our startup cost, as we talked about, we no longer need to give startup costs to Groves, and we had given some to Godley Station, K through 8, and we had also given it to Pulaski. They came off. Now, we still do have startup cost in there for the new Bloomingdale again this year or coming up. And we also left money in there for the new Windsor Forest High School. Okay, this was just a slide talking about the vacancy factor and why we have a vacancy factor built in. And it is based on a budget tool we use to account for expected but temporary unfilled positions during the year and the savings that provides. So what we do is we build in this credit amount, a negative, so that we aren't holding off too much money, because we know that even if you have a person for the job, sometimes it takes 2 or 3 months to fill that spot, and so there may be even people in the position, there may be money budgeted where it's sitting there 2 or 3 months not being used and that sort of thing. So we build in a vacancy factor so we're not over budgeting. This is our general fund vacancy factor analysis, and in here you can see the blue bar is the adopted salaries versus the actuals, and in '22, we had an extra $20 million in salaries that we had budgeted based on what we actually had, so we had over budgeted by 20 million. In '23 by 23 million, and '24 by 37 million. And the vacancy factor you can see is increased, and you can see on the fiscal year '26, the proposed amount, that's where we added the 10 million to the one we have currently for fiscal year '25. So we've increased the vacancy factor there. Teacher vacancy factor shift. This is the slide that explains why we went from a T5 step 10 for our vacancy factor for a position that's not filled for teachers. And we determined, HR looked at the data from this year, and they determined the average salary for all new teacher hires was at the T4 step 14. And so that is what we're going to use for next year, next school year. Pool updates, and Mrs. Davidson will be speaking to you about this.
Good morning. Good morning. All right, so I'm not going to belabor you on this slide. This is just a reminder of what we presented last time. But I did want to take an opportunity to give you an update of where we are. So on May 27th, we had the opportunity to meet with the City of Savannah leadership, and we had some great conversations. The good news is the city is open to a long-term collaboration, either through the sale of the property of where the pools sit, or a lease arrangement with operational control, both of which the city would operate the pools and manage the programming. So we are currently in the next steps of working through intergovernmental agreements with our attorneys. And so we plan for summer of 2026 for the use of Jenkins Pool. And then we will continue to have the collaborative language to see how we can repair and restore the Haven and the Brock pools and get them up and running for that summer 2026 as well.
Sorry. You want a question? Yeah, you may. Dr. Bringman?
Thank you. Not to throw a wrench in the gears, but is there any reason to need to still be the owner of the property, and not sell? Like, I'm fine with fixing them because I think they can be a part of the community. We don't have to run them. Is there something legal difficulty to say this chunk of land that the pool sits on, that the pump house sits on, is just going to be city now, and just let them completely have it rather than having to
that's
sell?
one of the options.
Yeah,
I think it's pros and cons to both.
you got sell, and I'm okay with saying, because it's taxpayer money, different pots, different silos, especially in Savannah a lot of times, just to say, hey, we've got money, we're going to fix them, city's going to be better at running this, here you go. It was county property for the school system, but now it's going to be city property, and do we have to, I see sale and I feel like we're going to try to get market value, where I'd love it to say $1.
Yes, so absolutely. It is not intended that we would have market value for
Okay,
the
great.
properties. It would be based on whatever legal requirement we would have, whether that be $1, $0, whatever is required. We also spoke with the city. They are in agreement to consider property swap. So if there's a property that they have that they're not using, then perhaps we could swap these properties with them so that we would benefit and they would benefit.
Awesome. And then before I got hands popping up, so before I let go, and then I'll hush, the community has spoken about the historical perspective of this. I have thoroughly been impressed in my lack of education on the meaning. So I'm glad that the community and fellow board members helped us come to the pool and figure out what this means. Is there a way, before we figure out how the city has this, to kind of have that history at the school, at each one of those pools? History gets lost so often when we don't write it down. And this is probably written somewhere, definitely, but put it on something, an edifice that actually every child that goes to that pool is going to figure out why it is symbolic, and I think that means something, especially for somebody that is, not as educated on what was occurring at times in this community, and I'm sure there are individuals that still don't know that. So I would like the school system to help keep that legacy out there, if that makes sense. And if it doesn't, please tell me I'm barking up the wrong tree. So,
Dr. Hoskins-Brown?
Thank you. I just wanted to ask a clarification on Dr. Brinkman's question, and then I have a comment on the preserving the history. I think that's a really good suggestion. The question is, we bought it from the city. It was city property. So, yeah, none of these pools were ours when I got on the board. So,
Yeah, yeah.
so yeah, so there's that. The question, the comment I have about the history is that I think that there is a way, and that there's a way that we should do it. We do lose our history. Most people don't know that where Bartlett was Haven, and Haven was a school. Haven Home was for rural African-American families, and they had an agricultural program and all that. People just don't know that, even though there is a Georgia historical marker in front of the school, but it's facing the street. So I think that not just a marker, but something else. I think we missed a commitment at A.B. Williams when we renamed the school. We spoke with the family and we told the community we would preserve the name of that school, Spencer, because of the role that Mr. Spencer had in African American education, and we were going to do a mural in the cafetorium, and we still haven't done it. So I'm glad that you're saying that. I hope we revisit commitments and find ways to do it well, so that those stories persist in our district.
Ms. Hall, and then Ms. Kowalski.
Okay. First of all, I'd like to say, Ms. Davidson, I see that the pool at Jenkins is full of water. Are we aware of that?
Yes, ma'am. We have placed water in it, and we're working to make sure the filters are up and running, because we've redone the plaster, redone the filters, all those pieces. We are also looking as part of this partnership to see if the city could perhaps come in and operate them faster than summer of 2026, but I would rather tell you the worst case scenario and then come in a better time frame. So potentially they could operate them for August, but we have to go through the health certifications and all those pieces for the Jenkins site.
So safety-wise, is it secure right now
We have a
nobody
fence around it. I'm not going to say that a fence alone is just the security point. I would lend to our campus safety partners, but we are working. We heard the suggestion for a cover, and so we're trying to get a cover to put on top of it, because we know that how exciting a pool is, and we want to make sure that people are not coming in when we're not ready for them.
Okay. Well, I would just very quickly like to say, I think this is a moral commitment we've made, and I'm very pleased about it. The community is very pleased, and I'm hoping whatever agreements we come up with the city or the county, that this is a permanent, as much as the future can be permanent, that we don't have to revisit this again, 4 or 5 years from now, that whatever we decide to do. But I am very pleased, and I want us to have credit for it, that we 10 individuals took this upon ourselves to provide this for our children as part of their holistic education. So I want to see a plaque up there that says that, for us. No, I'm very serious, because the city has kind of let it wax and wane, and the city and the county, they're going to fix the potholes and make sure your water pipes are clear and all of that. But we have the lives of children in our hands, and I'm so proud of that. And to me, this is one way of showing our commitment to that. Thank you.
Ms. Grabowski, then Dr. Howard Hall.
And I know we have other things, so I'll try to make it quick, but thank you, first and foremost. I know that this has been something that has taken a lot of work and effort on behalf of the team to get to this point, and just sincerely thank you to each of you for putting the time and energy into working towards a solution. This is so exciting to see we're at this point. So thank you for that. I did have a question about Jenkins in particular, so glad to hear we're looking at opportunities since it is up and running and functional. Coincidentally, I heard something on This American Life. It was a story of a teenager talking about like when they broke into a school or broke into a pool, and as soon as they hopped the fence, there was really loud audio and visual alarm that was set off that said, "The police have been called, you are trespassing." So I'll just put that out there to say, you know, there are lots of deterrents that we can look at as far as that goes. And then very quickly, I know it was a bit of a tangent about the history, but it's a great tangent because that is something I have long thought that we need to look at, and maybe we can work with the communications team. We have so many schools that are named after so many great legacy leaders. Nowhere on our website do we have information about who those people are. Few of the schools have information about who those people were. So I would love to see us really elevate recognition of the naming of our school facilities and what that means and represents really across the district. Thank you.
Dr. Howard Hall.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I am no longer big mad. I am big glad. Thank you so much for the collaboration with the city and discussing solutions and not the problems. I really appreciate that because my main concern has always been for ensuring continued accessibility of those public pools for our children, and that we don't have to ever discuss closure or disruptions of anything that's going on within the community. So I really appreciate that, and I'm sure that we will come up with a solution because you have been collaborating, and thank you so much for that.
Anyone else?
Yes, I would like to simply,
Yes.
I would like to be very expeditious in this. I echo the sentiments of all of my board members. I would like to say thank you so much for this wonderful collaboration. We're grateful to see what's going to come from this, and we're honored that we are able to make this stride together. I would like to lean in on this topic publicly since we have kind of made it known that this pool at Jenkins is not secure. I believe that it is in our best interest to make sure that we put our steps forward to secure it as soon as possible for the public safety. Safety is our top priority, and pushing us forward is a key aspect. So thank you for that.
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to quickly, one thing I forgot to mention was, as we're talking about sale versus lease, we had talked before about opportunities to be able to use our pools for educational, like underwater robotics and those kinds of things. So let's be mindful of that as we go into negotiations. Let's look for opportunities for us to continue to be able to use them when our students are also on campus.
Mr. Katchmar, then Dr. Howard Hall. Dr. Hoskins-Brown.
Just a couple of comments. I'll repeat what everyone said. Thank you, Roger and Dr. Watts, for leading the charge on that meeting, but let's expand it to all of our recreational stuff. We have agreements with the city and the county on gyms and fields, et cetera. This should all be part of that same discussion. And then on the safety thing, I'm just going to say none of us are pool safety experts. Fences are all the code might require or not. I don't know. Let's just see what the experts say we need before spending a ton of money on things we think are good ideas, but don't necessarily have to do, because we're going to sell this stuff anyway, or let someone else maintain it. So I'm just saying, I don't know what best practice is. Let's find out from somebody who does. Thank you.
Dr. Hoskins-Brown.
Yes, I agree. I think I lost my train of thought thinking of listening to Sean, because I don't know if you did, David, but I jumped the fence at the pool in Georgetown, and so the statute of limitation has expired. So.
I mean, I definitely also cleaned up while I worked there for all the kids that would come and throw all of the furniture in the pool, and that was our, yeah.
I didn't
it's
throw
always a
furniture
fun day
in the
to come to
pool,
work.
but we did do midnight swim, so.
It's on tape, too.
Yes. Come get me. I'm 50-something years old now. But my comment is about shoot, I was losing my train of thought. Oh, money to keep running these pools. And so I'm asking about the follow-up on the availability of CTAE programming that necessitates water that can make this an academic as well as a recreational enterprise. Okay.
And that assures
Okay. Anyone else?
I think it's important to note that we do need to revisit that in terms of academic use and potentially leveraging. My understanding when we met with the city is that if we sell the property, there's not going to be as much ongoing cost associated with that. We would likely still need to provide the renovations to the two existing sites that have not yet been renovated, Brock and Haven. However, if we do lease, there is an ongoing expenditure that we would have to consider as we develop budgets in the future. And whether that comes from CTAE or facilities, that would be a part of a recurring budget request of the board.
Yes, Ms. Hall.
Dr. Watts, is there any way that our attorneys could look into the East Blast umbrella for these expenses? It seems
In
to
the
me.
future, we
Yeah.
could, but we did not include it in our.
No,
East
not
Los
now, I
Five, so,
realize, but,
yes, in the future.
And there's no amendments at all. It's as voted on, and that's it.
As voted.
Okay. I hope we're really experts on this, because read in the paper all the time about East Blast events across the country, and they seem much broader than what we are working with. So, and that could be Georgia, but I just hope that we're really expert on this.
So, I'm very excited about this. I will tell you that when I called Jay Melder, he was open to this meeting. In fact, I think I called him on a Monday, and we were meeting that Wednesday. And he brought all of the staff members that needed to be in that meeting, and it was all about how can we do this? How can we work together? One of the other things he did say is the question of the lifeguards. I guess there are more lifeguards available now. So, all right, continue. I'm sorry.
No, so as Dr. Watts alluded to, we have prepared some projected pool expenses. So the one-time expenses would be for the pool repair and replacement for Brock and Haven, to plaster, to fix the filters, to get those pools to a operable state. Then we have the Schumann site for the closure, because we do anticipate closing and possibly repurposing that site in the future. And then we have the routine maintenance. If we were to lease the sites over to the city, there might be an opportunity for us to partner and collaborate and pick up some of those expenses. And then if we were to sell the pools to the city, of course, we would have to get the pools up and running. So you would have those one-time expenses, but we wouldn't anticipate having the annual expenses for the maintenance. And then we also would like to elevate the expected increase in the insurance. If we were to lease them, could be up to about $68,000 on an annual basis.
Yes.
Can you clarify by what you mean of closure at Schumann? Does that mean filling in that pool?
That does mean filling in.
So I would love for us to really think, to know what we are doing with Schumann before we take that step. I think that depending on what happens with that property, that a pool, if we've talked about affordable housing and partnership, to me, that is an ideal site to look at that. And having a pool could be an amenity for residents. If we look at that as a potential different school site, again, the opportunities with CTAE. So I'd really like for us to hold off on that step if that is possible.
Yes, ma'am.
Continue.
All right. Now I will turn it back over to Ms. Cooley. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, on this slide, we have the budget decision-making levers. Our program investments or modification, determining new investments and assessing return on investments on other programs and strategies to consider whether to start. stop or continue funding. Another lever is our fund balance, limiting fund balance spending and preserving the district's reserves. The vacancy factor is budgeting for fewer unfilled positions, reducing salary expenditures. The millage rate, raising or lowering the property tax rate to change the amount of the local revenue collected. On this slide, the next few slides are just going to be the amount that is going to be on our tentative adoption for today, our tentative budget adoption. The general fund revenues did change, $657.5 million. The expenditures are at $659.5 million. Debt service and capital projects are still the same numbers from before. Some of these special revenue funds changed a little bit. We keep running salary projections. That changes on a daily basis based on who's been hired and who's retiring and that sort of thing. But the amount changed is very nominal on this slide. On the rest of this, there were some, one that did go up a good bit I did want to point out was the Fund 584, and that was simply because the reason that one increased so much is because we moved all of that textbook money into Fund 584 to pay for the future textbooks, because that's a multi-year fund. So that money did go up there because we took it from the general fund so that we wouldn't keep having to take stuff out of fund balance, and went ahead and put it into the 584. So that money's sitting out there for the next several years for textbooks. Our internal service funds, the workers' comp changed a slight bit, but essentially these remained about the same. Our total proposed budget revenues, as far as our revenues, is $940.9 million. Our expenditure total for all funds is $944 million. On this slide right here, this is just a slide to kind of show you our entire budget and what it's made up of. As we stated on the prior slide, our total expenditures with all funds is $944 million. And you can look at that and see, obviously, the general fund makes up almost 70% of our budget at $659.5 million. Capital projects is another big one at $162 million. Special revenue funds, which is most of the federal money, which is still, we are still not exactly sure about that, but that's at $118 million. That's like your Title I. And then our debt service is a very small amount, 0.03% at $270,000. And our internal service funds, which was that workers' comp and unemployment, that's at 0.39% at $3.6 million. And this is due to the fact that we have not received our tax digest. We've had to, or I think it will be voted on maybe today. These are our proposed changes to the meetings. We were supposed to have a meeting next week, but it would have had to have been advertised with the digest increase. And we don't know what that amount is yet, so we have had to delay that. I think it was on June 11th was our meeting that we were talking about doing next week. So we have still got the June 17th meeting on the docket. That's if we still get what we're supposed to, too. Hopefully it'll be coming soon. We have June 17th, and instead of just having a 6 p.m. meeting, we've changed it to have two of our 11 o'clock and a 6 p.m., and then to do our final meeting on Wednesday, June 25th. That puts us about a week behind adopting the budget, and also our final budget and millage rate adoption on Wednesday, June 25th at 6:30 p.m. And if anybody has any questions.
Ms. Grabowski, then Ringman.
I just had a quick question. This goes back to much earlier in the presentation. Under some of the reductions, under the school startup cost, do we need to have anything in there for the swing sites, for school startup cost at the swing sites that are under renovation? Or because they were already in use, they don't have the same cost?
Because they're already in use, they will have the same startup cost.
Okay. Okay, all right, thank you.
Dr. Ringman?
Yes, and I'm going to first ask for patience because I've been digging and I cannot find something that that you have given us before, finance people, but I would like it to be presented again at one of the, something leading up to the millage discussion. We had a beautiful slide in some deck that looked at over probably the last 4 or 5 years what was projected, what was collected, and how for the vast majority of those years, we always under projected our tax collection and over collected. Am I, yeah, I'm getting some that I'm not barking up the wrong tree. So I would like our millage discussion, that's a big component of that millage rate discussion is if we continue in our budget to say this is how much we think we're going to collect from a millage rate in taxes, and then we are always under and over collect, then we need to be thinking about some point something rollback. We have done rollbacks multiple times since I was elected to the board, and we have continued to collect, I think, over what we need to run the district. It has definitely gotten better, and our fund balance has grown, and we have, I think, done a great job, y'all have, of using the fund balance to move us forward. But I think it's important for us to know that we project this, we collect that, and the collection's always more based on this millage. When we start thinking about the 0.655 that you have projected, I know that's a projected, and I'm sorry, I can't even imagine how your job is right now, being like, I don't know, without numbers, because your job is like, I need black and white numbers. Don't let me have fuzzy math. So thank you for not trying. But to have that discussion on, okay, what could we drop? Because we dropped it 0.15 last year, and the budget ran well. I know we'll have those numbers eventually on like what was our projected, what was our final collection, what does that look like? I know you can't give me that right now for what we're doing, but nobody has sounded the alarm saying, oh my gosh, we rolled back that 0.15 and now we're not going to, you know, be able to pay for X, Y, and Z. So I'm gonna keep digging. But I know, do you remember? I know one of you presented that, and I can't remember if it was at a finance committee or a regular meeting or an informal, and I'm searching, and my search terms are not great, and I'm just going through agendas now, trying to find that. But if somebody in finance remembers that.
I will look.
Yeah.
Something together. I think the focus wasn't on the revenue side of it, it was on the expenditure.
No, we've had it, I've asked for it. I know it's been done because I've asked for it, and I will go and I will find it. If I'm on vacation, I will spend hours.
Yeah, but
we asked for this before, where it was, what did you project? What did we collect based on the millage rate that we ran? What was our overage? And I think, if I remember, we had like a 5 or 6 year span, and there was only 1 year that we barely under collected, and every other one was millions over what we projected is what we collected. So don't quote me news, because I need to find the data, because we're talking numbers and they're important. But that's a driving factor for me, is if we always project that we're not gonna pull much in based on our millage rate, and then we do, that's not great for our taxpayers.
I did want to point out that when I do this figure, once we get them, I actually put in what they tell me they're going to collect. The only one that we have discrepancy over is our delinquency, and correct me if I'm wrong, Larry, is our delinquency collection. Every other number I don't project. I did on this one to get us a number, but when they give me the numbers, in my spreadsheet, I put in the exact number they give me for property, personal property, for motor homes, and all.
I'm sorry, I wasn't trying to make it sound like y'all projected. I know that they project based on the current tax digest. Yes. Not saying I didn't, please, I'm sorry that that came out that way.
Oh, no,
that you're like, hey, and I'm projecting we're going to collect. No, I know that that's a hard number they can give you at that moment in time. This is how much stuff is in the county that we get to tax. I think all of us, I know I will, hedge that Chatham County is not going to have less things to tax anytime soon. Yeah.
All right. Mr. Smith, did you have your hand up? Okay. Dr. Howard Hall.
Thank you for your presentation. My question is just for the internal service funds. I know that the federal budget, it always ends September 30th, so you all haven't heard anything as of now. Is there any talk? Have you received any emails or anything regarding what's going on with receiving those funds?
I have not. Have you, Larry? We have, and I've asked Mrs. Sukanik, and, you know, she did not know the last time I talked to her, which was a couple weeks ago. She had not heard anything either, because I did ask her, because she does the Title I and a lot of the title federal monies, and she said that they had not, you know, she had received nothing so far.
And since she's retired, is there someone else that you're referring to now with these questions?
She is here till June 30th. She stayed on an extra month.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Mr. Smith?
Just a quick question. How do we come up with the startup amount for new campuses?
Well,
How's
I
that
put in
calculated?
what I'm kind of given, but it's based on what it has cost and if the school was there before. Like Grove's got a tremendous amount. I think we gave them 1.5 over 2 years because it was like 3 schools, and it was based on, we cover everything, but it gives them that extra money to spend on things that weren't thought about in the E-Splosh funds, like, oh, I need an extra file cabinet, I need this, that, and the other. For next year, Bloomingdale's an elementary school, they're getting $500,000. They had $500,000 this year, so they're getting a total of $1 million to spend on things that aren't covered in the building. And most of the furniture and stuff is all in there, so this is just things that they realize, oh, I thought we need this. And then Windsor Forest High, because it's a high school, they're getting $750,000 next year, but they got $750,000 this year also. So they got $1.5 million. So, but it is kind of based on just looking at historical data and how much the other schools spent when they went into their new sites and what they needed to get that wasn't covered under E-Splosh.
And it's pretty much historically, we try to use a flat rate depending upon the size of the school, whether it's elementary, K, middle, or high. So it's basically a flat rate between $500,000 and $750,000 per year, and that's numbers that has been consistent for those items that Paige mentioned. The other items that E-Splosh can't pay for instance, things in the media center, books, additional items in the media center, we have to pay for locally. But it's been a flat amount historically, probably the last 15 years or so.
Yes.
I know in the presentation, because we're looking at the general fund, we don't have a dollar figure in there for federal, but a lot of those are specific in programs, grants, et cetera. Do we have what is our federal income that we receive for programs outside of the general fund?
I can
Approximately.
give you the number for the federal programs, of the special revenue ones that I have in there for next year. Now, this is just a projection.
Can you go back to that special revenue slide?
It gives I don't think there's a total on it, but there is the amount for each one. It comes to it's like 118 million total. I've got an exact number. Oops, I'm hitting the wrong thing here. Okay.
And as she's going to that slide, does the information under those special funds include the transition
is.
to
118.
providing free lunch and free breakfast for all students next year?
That would be, yes, that would be in the special
that's
revenue
included in the-
funds, yeah, because the food service is in there, but it is the $118,455,597.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yes.
Sorry to come back, but y'all brought up Ms. Sukanik, and I just wanted to thank the Finance Committee, Ms. Sukanik, and the district for always having it be a part of our yearly cycle to have somebody come and talk about all of the federal funds that we get and actually have what the fund is, how much we get, what it does. Even better that I think this time and the last time we actually had how many people that impacts. I had some community members that love data, and they're trying to get it from everybody else. And I was like, oh, here. And I think they called me like 2 weeks after. They're like, are you kidding me? I was like, this is done every year, so thank you, because I think the county and the city aren't as easily able to access what part of their budget is coming from those federal and state grants and what they actually do. So thank you so much for the people that make that happen.
Anyone else? All right. Yes, I'm sorry.
Did we ever come to a number for our unreserved fund balance, the total?
When you ask come to a number, meaning,
Like last year, we took out about 8 million to balance. This year, you have here projected 1.9, and then we have 60 million coming out for, that was also discussed, right? Okay.
Are you asking how much is left?
Yeah, like are we?
After that.
Do we have, are we keeping enough for
Yes.
2 to
Yes.
3 months?
It was
And-
Yes.
in the previous workshop packet, I believe.
yes, that's what I'm thinking. We did it in the presentation last month. It's one on the slides, but I can make sure I get that to
Yeah,
you.
we can
all.
get it.
Okay,
The,
awesome.
Federal, the advisory, Finance Advisory Committee meeting, there was a slide on that, and it showed
Okay.
we had like 2.5 months, I think. We were showing the policy that we're supposed to be, we were trying to get to the 3, but we can't be more than 5. It was on
Which
a
is why I was asking, because
Right.
it was so high for a while. I know we were weeding back, we were taking as we
Right.
could. So I would just wanted to make that clear to the public too.
Yeah, the
that
only
we're taking
difference
that
is, I
seriously.
think for that particular slide, we used using fund balance at that time of $1.2 million.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a $700,000 difference between that presentation and
And
today.
this, got it,
Yes,
thank you.
ma'am.
Right. All right. You may continue.
That's it for me. If that's the end of the questions, we're good. Thank you very much.
We don't have another workshop, and Dr. Brinkman's point about projected millage versus collected millage sparks my interest and where we need to land, because I'll need to make a recommendation soon.
It doesn't have to be in a meeting, but I believe we have that data because we always have what we project and what we collect. It was a table. It's killing me that
We'll
I've been
get it
all
to
the way
you.
back to 2024, January 2024, and I've just been running through decks trying to find it. Our Google search isn't that great on the,
Right.
and probably my Boolean.
And Mr. Jackson and Ms. Cooley can correct me, if we do pivot and make an adjustment to the millage rate, we will likely, to keep all of our investments just as they are, we would have to pull on some other levers. So if we reduce the millage rate, then we would have to increase the use of fund balance or change some of the things that we're saying we want to do for next year, like compensation. So every decision impacts, and that's why they're levers. And if you pull on
And-
one, you gotta adjust another one.
Maybe. We adjust the budget every meeting. We adjust the budget every meeting. And if, and this is just me, I'm only 1 of 9. If we have data that shows historically that when the county gives Ms. Cooley and the finance department, here is, based on your current millage rate, what you're projected to collect, and we can look back however many years and say, this is what they've told us projected collections, and then we can look at our final audited, beautifully audited budget to show what we brought in, and that stays at a,
Right, yeah.
and I'm not trying to say that we have to be super, we could stay conservative
Right.
in those numbers, but if we're always X amount over, I don't think we have to pull a lever to remove anything. We can just know
It's
that.
a risk,
It is.
right.
It is.
It's a risk.
Yes. And I have not talked, this is just me spitballing, so it's what I do.
All right. Next, we have, all right, quarterly change order report.
You've been provided the quarterly change order report for the first quarter for 2025. These are change orders that have been approved from January 1 through March 31 of 2025. You'll note that there are 4 change orders that have already received board approval in accordance with board policy, these being over $50,000. The rest of these have all been approved by the superintendent through the workflow process. And with that, I can take any questions.
Yes, Dr. Austin.
Thank you for the report. On the error and omission at Henderson Formie, was that an owner error or was that a vendor error?
That one, let's see. That was a design error. They failed to install that casework that was required there. So that was picked up as a change order.
So it was not very much money relative to other expenses that we see in this kind of report, but why did it change our contract amount if it was a mistake that they made?
It was, I'm sorry, it was a design. Samet is the contractor. So they consequently had more work in their contract in order to do that. But it was a design error. It was missed in the drawings.
So it was missing our architect's drawings.
Correct.
So is there a way to address that? Is there like a liability or a contingency? Because we've had design errors before and they increased the contract price, but is there a way that there's a greater level of accountability for those errors?
There are contingencies, of course, that we have for change orders, and they can occur with either owner, additional cost, or through interface, field conditions, or quite frankly, errors and omissions. I think we have to allow the fact that when architects, designers put together full plans and specifications, that there are going to be some times when something is just missed. And so, we pick it up as best we can with change orders.
Okay. So I understand that we covered that in the contingency for projects, but that sits on our money side. I guess what I'm asking, and there's not an answer to, is that design is an intellectual project, is an intellectual product. So we're going to a professional who has superior technical skills to design something.
Yes.
And the rates for our architects are not negligible. So if there's a design error, I'm just wondering, do we ever hold our designers accountable, or do we just keep dipping into our contingency on the construction side to absorb that?
The accountability comes in whether or not they are awarded the next project. That's all part of the evaluation process that we go through. And, of course, whenever we do have changes like that, they are addressed. And they are asked, what is the issue here? Why did you miss it? So there is an accountability aspect as far as that concerned. We do not have a specific dollar amount that we say, okay, anything under this, we accept. Anything over this, we should be having you pay for it.
Okay.
Now, we've had situations in contracts, larger issues, where design professionals have had and do step up and say, I'm going to take this responsibility on, I missed this.
Okay.
I think
However-
the best example we have right now is what's going on at the Grove site in terms of the auditorium. That's the best example of us trying to have mutual ownership
Okay.
of where the failure occurred.
Exactly.
Since I've been here, I think to your point, that's the best example I have of like we may have joint accountability in that.
So I'm glad to hear that. I'm just glad to hear that the conversations are happening. I don't want it to be like the person who makes the most money always buys lunch. Like, I think there ought to be a discussion about, hey, we're going to lunch together. Who's treating today? Like, okay, there's a mistake. Where does it lie? So this has happened over the time I've been on the board. I think sometimes we've been more aggressive about it than others. I just wanted to see if we were having those conversations. So I'm satisfied with what I heard, and I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Dr. Howard Hall.
Yes, speaking of Groves, item 18, could you just give a description of the services for this $20,000 change order for a third floor wall failure? Is this the same as the auditorium
No.
situation?
This actually occurred back in 2022 when they were constructing the main building.
The hurricane?
No, it was, they had a wall failure. There was a blowover at that time, and it was determined that the wall was not constructed properly. And so that was, the architect had to go back and do their evaluation, review, and to come up with a plan for them to put it back together again.
So it was $20,000 to just review it and analyze it?
Mm-hmm.
So what did it cost once he did that for the $20,000?
Well, then, of course, they had to go back through again and watch it as far as when they reconstructed it. There was quite a lot that was associated with that, because not only did they have to look at just that wall itself, but look at the whole structure all the way around the facility and make sure that there wasn't any damage that resulted as further on down the line from structure or from other areas too that had those same types of details.
So they provided feedback for preventions?
It was a lot of review as far as going out in the field, taking a look at the conditions, of all of the other areas that were similar to that, and make sure that we didn't have any other issues when we did have that wall failure.
And since we talked earlier about, it was mentioned about the auditorium, then we talked earlier about contingency funds. And since Groves no longer has those, would that be included to actually repair that auditorium deficiency with we're going to use contingency funds for that, or that's still something we're trying to determine?
There are funds in the budget in order to take care of that, yes. We still.
There'll be an update today in closed session about that specific issue.
Okay.
Ms. Grabowski.
I just wanted to go back real quick to Dr. Hoskins-Brown's conversation, because I think it's a healthy one for us to all understand as a board. And in this particular instance, as you explained, I understand that the cubbies simply weren't included in the drawings, correct? So in that case, it's an omission versus an error. And so we have to pay the cost for the cubbies that have to be built in there. And to me, that's a less egregious violation of the kind of responsibility than an error would be that might have more substantial implications for the use of the building. So I don't know if that's helpful at all in thinking about who has the liability of taking ownership of that particular instance. But I appreciate the conversation about holding our professionals accountable for their responsibilities, certainly.
I don't weigh one differently than the other, simply because if someone's working as a consultant and they're being paid for their intellectual, what they know. When I worked as a consultant, I had liability insurance for giving bad advice. Okay, so what I'm looking at is if you have to pay insurance to make sure that your intellectual product, your advice, doesn't cost somebody something, to me, it's important to make sure that we're trying to uphold a level of quality. So if you're a design professional and you leave something out, to me, it's not so much less than a mistake, because you're being paid to fully think out the process.
Right.
So I understand your point of view. I don't see it the same way, but I'm also still unbothered because I've heard how we're managing it. My main concern is to make sure that we're paying attention to it, sure. That it's not just like, okay, we got it, we write the check. Yeah. But we're actually making sure that professionals are coming to the table with the rigor that we would like for them to have. And it sounds like we're holding them to that.
Yes. And if I could just add in this discussion also, because we do put those two terms together, errors and omissions. And when there is an omission, particularly in a hard bid project, because what they can do, they only put their bid together based upon what they see on the drawings. So an omission such as that casework, if it was on the drawings, it would have been in the bid. So we are not paying double for it. We're only paying for it one time. Error, however, is when something was incorrectly done, shown, and then the correction needs to be taken place, and that's additional dollars. And so there is a distinct difference in there. Thank
That's a
you
much
for
better
that.
explanation than mine, thank you.
Ms. Hall?
Mr. Huttinger, is there a chance to, can you remember, I'm trying to think back, any time where we actually decided to not use someone's services anymore because of their performance, since that is the ultimate, way of saying we're displeased. I'm trying to think, I can't think of one where we actually put that in play.
There is one, but I will not mention it, okay?
Oh, okay, all right. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right. Well, I will now entertain a motion to go into executive session. Thank you. Anyone seconded? Second. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor? All right.